Yeah, welcome everyone to our special seminar. I like everybody find some good interest from this story. We'll talk the second part of this limited reason next to it again. This is the first part. Okay, what are you looking at here? Very, I think famous, maybe pretty old one. This is actually Milky Way, the galaxy that we live, known to be ours. And it's known that the solar system is located around this area. In fact, this is not the real photo. You cannot really take a picture of this. Okay, this is drawing, no, not the real one. And another interesting drawing is this one. Somehow all the planets are aligned together. This is not real, but just to show the relative size of the sun. Wow, this is the relative size. Sun compared to Earth. Yes, oh, how small the planet we are living, how big is the sun really is. There are a lot of questions about this, but in fact, the main question is this. The where are all these? Are they really created by God? Or are they just kind of evolved by so-called by the evolution theory? Where are origin, the source of the origin? Yes, that's the question, that's the main question. This is too wide to answer. But let me introduce one historical kind of event, historical story, a story in the past about this man. Who's this man? Who's this man? He's Charles Darwin. Yes, very well-known person. It is this book, his book, The Origin of Species, that made a huge impact throughout the history in 1859. In fact, the title of this book is quite weird. It's pretty long. This is the real title. Origin of Species, that means natural selection or preservation of favored races in the struggle for life. What a long title. Not the typical title of the book. Problem is the influence of this man, this book. So what happened from this book? Let's see. Another man, Ernst Haeckel. Anybody who heard this name? Haeckel is actually he's also a famous person in history. Haeckel, who is Haeckel? He's known to be Darwin's German apostle. He is German, but German apostle of Darwin. That means he kind of supported the Darwinian evolution. Yes, he became a kind of apostle, the follower. Why? Because he just supported the theory. What did he say? He said the turning point in his thinking was when he read Charles Darwin, his book in 1860, just 1 year later, after the book was published. Wow, he said he was so impressed with the book, his book, The Origin of Species. Oh, why? Somehow, well, maybe that's quite new. Again, who's this man, Haeckel? He is, in fact, the one, Haeckel is the one who inspired Hitler. Have you heard? Hitler, who Hitler is? Wow, this is not really positive influence, very, very negative. If you know who the Hitler is, we know what happened to Hitler through this man, Haeckel. Yes, that's who Haeckel is. But that's not all. About Haeckel, there's something really kind of undesirable thing by this man Haeckel. So we are looking at something, I don't know if you have ever seen this picture. I think this is a pretty kind of popular drawing picture. The so-called embryo, embryo, the tiny, the beginning of the life. There are two embryos on the first row, second row. The first row, this is actually the embryo of the fish and from salamander, the 도롱뇽. 그다음에 embryo of turtle, chicken, rabbit, and human beings. Somehow, the shape of the embryo on the first row, they look just so similar. Oh, how could all the embryos of the different animals, different life, how the shape of the embryo is so similar? Interesting. From this drawing, Haeckel and Darwin, the evolutionists, they said, see, because the initial form of the life, the embryos of the different animals, they look just too similar. That means, yes, there must be kind of the common ancestor. That's how the lives have been evolved from the same common ancestor. That's what the evolutionists kind of argued. Okay, but in fact, you know what? The bottom one is actually taken by picture about more than 100 years later. Back then, there was no camera. There's no camera, no way to take picture. But in fact, the top row was found out to be drawn by hand. Haeckel drew the first row, the embryo of the first one by hand. He drew it. But in fact, these were the second row. They were the real one. You see the shape between the two. They are not the same. Quite different, especially the human being. The embryo of the human is quite different from the drawing. And later, it was found that the first drawing is drawn by Haeckel as a frog. You know, this has been drawn by hand. It's kind of deception. Okay, but problem is this drawing has been known to be the real one, and it has been taught for more than 100 years throughout the schools and the many textbooks. The fraud has been taught to be true, but in fact they are so different. These are taken with camera about 100 years later. So this fraud made a huge confusion throughout over 100 years. Can you imagine? Wow, that's what Haeckel did. Haeckel, he made a huge fraud and found out to be fraud about over 100 years later. That's the situation. In fact, he confessed another comment. He said this way. Haeckel confessed, he claimed actually that spontaneous generation is pretty much evolution. Evolution must be true, not because it had been proven in the laboratory, but because otherwise it would be necessary to believe in a creator. Oh, can you believe it? Why did he say evolution must be true? It is not because it has been proven in the lab, but in fact it is because otherwise we have to admit the creator. Wow. Have you heard this kind of confession? Maybe not easy to read this kind of confession because it's not really published, not much. We just didn't know the reality of the evolution theory. Maybe you may say, oh, isn't it just one tiny bit of case, maybe an exceptional case? I would say it's not. Okay, let's come back to our main point, the evolution story from many scientific fields. As I mentioned last week, there are many scientific fields, from geology to all the way to maybe chemistry, history, radiometric dating, so many areas. Each area has their own version of evolution theory, supporting long age, millions and billions of years long formation of the geological column and the dinosaur and the Jurassic era, maybe 100 million years long ago. So, as I mentioned, the very foundation of the evolution theory is a long age of time, basically, and the chance. In fact, the chance of the evolution is very low, but they say because there's enough time, so even though the chance is very low, it's possible to have positive evolution because the long age kind of guarantee the positive side of the evolution. That's the principle of the evolution theory. But on the other hand, the Bible just said the opposite way. The Bible said, the Genesis said, right, God created everything in 6 days, in 1 week, creation week. And yes, the foundation of the creation theory is simply the biblical record. And we say, yes, it is based on the belief. It takes belief to take all this explanation. But this one, somehow people think, oh, these are kind of scientifically proven theory. But in fact, yes, there are many scientists who support this evolution theory, but in fact, I would say they actually believe. It takes belief. Why? That's what I'm gonna talk about again and again later. But in fact, on the other hand, there are not many scientists who believe creation theory. Why? It takes belief. Yes. Anyway, that's the kind of situation. So maybe the evolution theory itself, maybe it's too complicated. It takes kind of professional knowledge and experience, so it may look maybe too difficult to deal with from the beginning. So I would suggest maybe taking a look at some easier case, maybe very simpler case, the things around us, and see the main principle. So the main question is this: what is then the meaning of science? Let's clarify the meaning of science. Science. The term science is quite broad term, and there's some confusion. Yes. we need to kind of discern the meaning of science. We need to be able to kind of differentiate or clarify the meaning of science. There are basically two different types of science. The first one is so-called experimental science, or observation science. I don't know any of you who tried this one before. Now we are here, and the change from this model to the current one, that's the gradual change. That's the example of the evolution. Yes, that's the very evolution, right? On the other hand, there's another science, so-called origin science, dealing with the deep past, the things in the past realm, like the Big Bang theory, from Big Bang galaxy solar system and the evolution of the geological era, the one that we used to hear. The scope of the experimental science is present, and the scope of origin science or historical science is past. They are dealing with totally different area. But how can it discern the two? How can it differentiate the two realms? It is this: by applying the scientific methods. We can apply the scientific method to differentiate the two different realms. Okay, how can we differentiate? Is it observable? Is the object really observable by science? Can it be repeatable or reproducible by some experiment? Can you do some experiment to prove it? Yes, that's the typical scientific methodology, right? We want to observe and repeat or reproduce as a way of experiment, so forth. So if all these are possible, yes, the things in the present realm, yes, everything is possible, right? For the change of the cell phone, everything can be observable, repeatable, reproducible. So we know the things, what happened. On the other hand, the things in the past, the deep past, can you really observe the Big Bang event? Can you really see do you have any way to see the Big Bang, the billions of years ago? There's no way to observe the Big Bang. Can you really repeat it? Okay, let's make another Big Bang. Can you make another Big Bang, or can you make another sun or another Earth? Can you make another moon? Let's do another repeating experiment. Have you heard any kind of experiment? There's no way to repeat or reproduce anything about this story, right? No way to repeat it, reproduce it, no way to experiment. That's the big difference between the two, experimental or the origin science. So basically, the short conclusion is this: everything about the past depends on the evidence, so-called evidence or the witness, eyewitness. In order to know the things in the past, we need evidence, solid and objective evidence or witness. In fact, it is more like about the initial condition, so-called, or the information about the path. We'll talk about it later again. If there's no information like this, initial condition or path, then what can you do? There's no way to repeat it, there's no way to reproduce it, no way to observe the past. There's really nothing really we can do to prove it. So we just have to interpret, or assume it. So that's why it depends on interpretations. Yes, that's the big difference. So in a sense, the things in the present realm is like the natural region. On the other hand, the things in the deep past is pretty much like the things in the supernatural region, supernatural one. The things in the supernatural one, there are many things like a spirit. How can you observe the spirit? There's no way to observe the spirit. How can you measure the spirit? That's the example of the supernatural thing. I think it's pretty much the same, right? The things in the deep past is somewhat like the things in the supernatural realm. Why? There's no way to prove it. Yes, simply it's unprovable by scientific methods. We cannot use scientific methodology to prove the things in the deep past. But a lot of things in the present, yes, they are provable by science. Yes, we see the clear difference. So simply, the things in the deep past, the stories of the origin science, it just relies on the assumption. Many assumptions are all subjective interpretation. That is basically the same as faith. Yes, that's the nature of faith. The things that we just have to interpret subjectively or believe it. Yes, simply it's beyond the limit of science or beyond the reason. Yes, that's a very good example showing the things beyond the limit of science or beyond the reason. Maybe that's too much about the broad general concept. Here's a very specific example, another example, very interesting one. I think every moms like it. There are two bags, very nice looking bags, very famous bags. There's a sign LV. every mom knows, I'm sure. Louis Vuitton, Louis Vuitton, very famous bags. I think everybody loves this bag. But there are two. Problem is, I heard one is original, but the other one is fake. Oh, which one is original, which one is fake? The problem is we don't know which one is. Oh, we just want to get the original one, right? Nobody really wanted the fake bag. Yes. So which one is the original one? That's the question. The original Louis Vuitton, yes. Anybody who would be happy with the fake one? I'm sure nobody really would love to have the fake one. Everyone loves to have the original one. So what people know from the present, the scope of the present realm, we know the design, color, the texture of the book, the bags. So the information from the present one is observable. There's no need to assume it, right? No assumption, or no controversy. We know a lot from the very superficial information. But the question is about the past. Oh, are they really from the same maker? One of them are fake. Are they really made of the same leather? Or are they really have the same durability? Because one is not the real one, original one. How can you tell the original one from the fake one? Yes, in order to tell the original one, we need something more, some more information, like origins information. When was really made, or the so-called initial condition. If we don't have the original information, the initial condition, we don't really know how to tell which one is fake, or how can you tell which one is the original one, which one is fake. It looks very similar, very similar. For me, they look almost the same. Both of them are original. So the problem becomes the issue of, yes, very subjective interpretation. We just have to subjectively interpret which one is the fake one or the original. Anyway, one was original, the other was fake. But how can we tell? It's very hard for me, not really easy for most of people. But it's provable, right? It's provable because maybe we can find the information about the past. Maybe if there's the kind of serial number of the bag, or if we find the original maker, maybe he can tell the person who made the bag. If we find that person, maybe he can tell the original one from the fake. So if we have the eyewitness or evidence, yes, then there's a way to prove it, which one is fake or not. Without this evidence, without the eyewitness, or how can you tell which one is fake? That's the problem. We can experience in our life. Another example, very maybe common example, is this one. When you go to the playground, we saw students were running on the track. Yes, we tend to run on the track. So when you go to the ground, we saw they already began running. The question from the experimental science point of view about their fast speed, running speed, or how tall they are, what's their pace, or how much calorie are they burn. These are the questions, right? From the experimental science point of view, we know the answer for this question. Why? These are the things that can be measurable, because we can observe, so we can measure. That means we know the answer. But on the other hand, there's some other question about the past, the question related to the past. Okay, if we know this much about their running, then how about this question? Then when did they began to run? What time? Or how long time have they been running? Or how many laps have they been running? If we want to know about the past information, if we want to know about the detail of the past, or how can you answer? What time did they start running? Or how long time? So in order to answer this question about the past, yes, we need more information, right? We need more information. But if, of course, we cannot look back at the past. We cannot observe the past. There's no time machine. We need maybe time machine. So basically, if we don't have the information about the initial condition or the so-called past, there's no way to answer. There's no way to know the correct answer about this situation. Okay. So basically, we can apply the same concept. For the scope of the present, it's pretty much like a natural region. We can answer, we can measure, but the things about the past is pretty much like the situation about the supernatural realm, supernatural region. Why? There's no way to prove it. In a similar way, another example, let's say when you go to the beach, maybe in the evening, or I don't know, it's early in the morning, see very nice sunrise or sunset, or the boat was sailing in a very nice way, in a nice region. Yes, the question again is, okay, wow. So things about the present, the realm of the present, or how fast is the boat sailing, or how tall is the boat, or the length, or what is the kind of mileage. Maybe we can calculate as far as we can measure. But on the other hand, the question about the past, if we want to know things like these questions, then how long distance has this boat been sailing, or how long, or how long time, or when did they, or how long, so which path? So if we want to know the things about the past, okay, how can you answer? Yes, we need more information, right, in order to know the things in the past. Yes, so there's a certain limit. I think we can clearly see there's a limit in our understanding. So we need more information. So again, you can say there's an uncertainty exists for the questions that we have. What kind of uncertainty again? What kind of uncertainty? If our interest is in the present, in the realm of the present, yes, scope of experimental science is present, then things are observable, then we don't need any assumption because we can measure. There's no controversy. But if you apply the timeline, there are more information involved. The things in the past, we need the information about the origin, the initial condition again. And what kind of path did they follow? We need information about the path or the rate, the speed, the running speed, or the running rate. So we need more information. So the scope of science in the past, the scope of this kind of origin science is past. It is simply beyond observation. Because we cannot apply the scientific method. We cannot observe, we cannot repeat or reproduce that running. How can you repeat it? So there's basically no answer. So it depends on man's assumptions, subjective assumptions. So basically the things about the past is not the issue of science. It is in fact more about the issue of interpretations or even our worldview. The way we see, the way we kind of judge. It really depends a lot on our interpretations. So again, we can apply the concept. Yes, the present realm is the natural region, but the things in the past is pretty much like the things in the supernatural region. Very hard to prove about the things in the past, because we need more information like this. If we have the information about their past, like maybe if we have any kind of video recording, or if we have any witness, if we have any record anyway about their past, then we can clearly answer. We know the answer. But if we don't have any kind of information, no witness, no record, then how can you answer? There's no way to answer. The same way, it's the same for the sailing boat in the sea, right? The scope in the present is pretty much observable. It's no controversy. But the things in the past, it is beyond science. It becomes. Sorry. So anyway, in fact, it has really nothing to do with the objects. It can be anything, everything. Okay, we can apply the same concept to almost everything. Right? It doesn't need to be like this. It can be any object, almost anything. Yes. Why? There's the scope of the present, and there's the scope of past. Yes, we can apply this concept. So this can happen almost for everything. Yes, we can apply the same one. Is it the natural region or is it the supernatural? The things in the past is about the same as the things in the supernatural. So now let's come back to our main point of interest. The piece of this part, the piece of this geological column, the geological aberration. We say we are here in the current modern age, but we have been traced all the way back to what is it? Cenozoic, Mesozoic, Paleozoic things, very old age, and we are actually from all the way traced back to the Big Bang. That's the typical explanation. But all the story from the Big Bang to all the way of the geological column, these are basically the story of the deep past. Yes, deep past. How can it have the real accuracy? How can it have an accuracy? Why? Because it is simply beyond the science or beyond the region. Why? They are in the deep past. Yes, there's no way to prove it. Again, finally, maybe we can have this question. Then who in the world is the real expert? Who is the professional who can really answer the question about the deep past? So we are talking about these running students who are the sailing boat. And these questions about the past. So when did they start? And how long time have they been? Or how many left? Or how long distance? So those questions about the deep past. Can you really ask expert? And who's the expert? That's the question. In terms of the present scope, the scope of the present, maybe there are many experts, like in terms of the running on the track, maybe the marathoner or the sport analyst, maybe they are the kind of the experts or the professionals in this area. How about the sailing? Maybe the sailor, very well veteran sailor, maybe the expert, or the ship maker, they really know things about the sailing. Maybe they are the expert. They can answer a lot about the questions related to the present, the scope of the present. But if the question is about the deep past, who's the real expert who can give the answer? Yes, that's the question. It's not really easy. Why? In fact, there's really no expert when it comes to the deep past. So we can summarize this way. For questions without answer, there are many questions without answer. Interestingly, ironically, everyone can give answer. How can everyone can give answer? That means whenever you say something about the past, it kind of makes sense. Why? Because there's no way to prove it. No way to prove it. And if there are many people who may have similar opinion, maybe they can make a kind of majority rule. Majority rule, they tend to decide the expert. Because many of us believe the same way, maybe we can decide one among those people. But still, the answer from the expert is not really the right answer. Why? It's unprovable. No way to prove it. So what we really need is the real witness, not the expert. Okay? Yes. We need just the witness. It doesn't need to be expert. Just need to be witness. But especially the things in the deep past, like evolution theory, or that's in the realm of the deep past, is pretty much unprovable. Why? There's no way to observe, repeat, or reproduce. We cannot apply the scientific methodology. Simply, there's no eyewitness, no proven record. So, how many PhDs do we really need for the deep past? Oh yes, somehow the PhD doesn't really work. Okay, doesn't seem to be enough with PhD. So, who's more important when it comes to the deep past? Is it expert or is it witness? Yes, it is. It is witness. It is witness because there's no expert for the deep past. Okay, but do we really have witness about the deep past? In fact, there's no witness. Okay. Yes, there's no witness. That's I think one of the reality of the scientific activity dealing with the deep past, like evolution theory. Also, maybe that also includes the creation theory. But when it comes to the witness, maybe we can see the record of the Bible as the witness. Bible does record the very details of the creation, but it takes belief. It takes belief. May not be the kind of the witness that we expect. So in a sense, we cannot say there's no witness, but somehow the Bible does provide the very witness to come based on the belief. Yes. So maybe this is too short summary, but I just like to summarize that. Right, when it comes to the things in the past, Right. Scientifically speaking, it's almost impossible to prove the things in the past. Really depends on the witness or the evidence. But if there's no witness or evidence, yes, how can it becomes a matter of interpretation, assumptions, or what? Yes. Obviously the point. We'll continue the story next week.